Great. Welcome, everyone, to the Town of Greater Napanee regular session of council for the 10th day of September 2024. We'll call the meeting to order. I just want to remind everyone this evening that this evening's meeting, as usual, is being live streamed via our YouTube channel. So there'll be folks at home watching this evening's meeting. And if they aren't available to watch it this evening, they'll have the ability to watch it anytime they want. All they got to do is click onto the YouTube channel. It'll be there. So just before we get started into the meeting, I'd like to start on somewhat of a somber note and speak to the passing of Ray Callery, the former CEO of the Town of Greater Napanee. Ray was a devoted civil servant who dedicated most of his career to Napanee. His career began in 1991 as the Deputy Clerk Treasurer and transitioned to the CAO in 1998, where he remained until 2021. Ray assisted with the town's amalgamation and played a key role in major public projects such as the SPC, which is now known as the Best and Bash Arena, completion of Jim Kimmett Boulevard, the splash pad development, and many, many more important projects which have helped form the community that we have today. Ray's passion for Napanee was unmatched. On behalf of the town, I would like to express our sincere, heartfelt condolences to the family, Ray's wife, Mary Ann, children Eleanor, Ashley, Rachel, Mark, and their respective families, and granddaughter Amelia. Our flags will remain lowered to honor Ray's service. Once again, our thoughts and prayers are with Mary Ann and her family at this extremely difficult time. So, God bless. Moving on, we'll look for a motion for the adoption of the agenda, and we're going to amend the agenda slightly this evening. We've got a couple of matters that we would like to deal with under new business, and when we get there, we can speak to them. So we'll look for a motion of the adoption of the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor. Sorry, I guess Madam Clerk wants me to share. So. We've got a matter that I'm going to ask Mr. Grant to speak to with respect to our meeting that happened on the 3rd of September with respect to the homeless situation. And we're going to have a discussion with respect to that just to let everyone know where we're at, where we're going, and what we're going to do. And I believe, Councillor Pennell, you've got a matter that you would like to put on there as well. If you could go ahead and let us know what it is.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, from our last meeting that we had, there was a discussion with the a report that the Market Square Advisory Committee was going to bring back to council, and we're learning of some other circumstances that we're asking for another report to come back to council before that's the Market Square Committee Advisory Committee makes a recommendation to council. So I'd like to speak about that under new business. Thank you.
Sorry, thanks, Councillor Pennell. And we'll make sure we get that included as well. So we'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion. Opposed, motion's carried. We'll look for an adoption of the agenda for the regular session of council dated the 10th of September 2024 to be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion. Opposed, motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Deputations. We'll start this evening's meeting off with scheduled deputations, new items. And this evening we have Dennis Mills and David Ellis to speak to us with respect to the Arts and Culture Awards. So come on up, gentlemen. You may know the process here, but I'll explain it to you when you get up and get settled. You'll notice that you have microphones in front of you. There's a button on the right-hand side that says talk. You have to push that button and hold that button as you're talking. If you don't, the folks at home aren't going to be able to hear all the good things that you're going to tell us. So when you're done talking, you can just let the button go and just hang tight after your deputation is completed. We may have some questions for you. So I'm not sure who wants to start, but whenever you're ready, sir, the floor will be yours.
In the meantime, it's nice to be here.
Thanks, Dennis. It's always good to break up that awkward silence.
Your Worship, members of Town Council, fellow citizens of the town of Greater Napanee. My name is David Ellis, and I'm a member of the Napanee Arts and Culture Advisory Committee for the last year and a half, going on 2 years. And I've been a citizen of Napanee for about 3 years. We're here tonight not only to discuss in our 10 minutes the proposal to have an annual arts awards for the town, but also to encourage the town council to support the arts in general. I'd like to thank the town council and especially Bob Norrie, our chairman of the Arts Advisory Committee. But we'd also like to encourage the town to support the arts in general and the arts and culture in general a little more. And my colleague Dennis will go into that further. I'll tell you a bit about myself in a few seconds. The Arts Awards mean something special to me. In Toronto, I worked in the arts for most of my career, in public relations, communications, including places like City TV, provincial government, including the Ontario Arts Council, federal government, including Telefilm Canada, the federal funding agency for film and television. And I worked for a few years for the National Film and Television Awards, the Genies and the Geminis, we used to call them. So I feel we're not simply asking to promote some awards, but I think between me and my colleagues on the committee, we have the expertise to put on a good show. Keeping in mind that the arts and culture are more than just some music and some theater and some dance, but the cultural representation of every citizen in town. It could be woodworking, it could be chalk drawing on the streets. I know we're going to talk about that more. But the awards are not just to pat people on the back, but to, again, show that the town believes in the arts and culture. I think I'll hand it over to Dennis now.
Okay, thank you, David. Just a little bit of background then. Those of you who have been on council before, Councillor Shank, you'll remember that there was a previous awards program. And it goes back several years. And during COVID, we seem to have forgotten about a number of things. So that was the beginning point for the Arts and Culture Committee. Looking back, reviewing, revising, and bringing a new awards program forward. So it has some things that were there before, but it has some new ones as well. I would like to, since we've been through COVID, we don't like to be reminded, but there was quite a sad interruption of the arts. And you will notice in the package, there is a legacy award there. Over the years, we have lost a number of people who were active in the arts and a number of people who are no longer active in the arts. So that legacy component, I think, is important to catch up from where we were before. Several categories, of course. It doesn't mean that there's an award given in each category each year. These are significant awards, and if there's nothing, or there isn't an individual or an association of arts who is deserving or has come to the fore, then maybe it's not the year. So it's a matter of prioritizing. We might have very few or we might have several in the categories. Each year it should be reviewed on its own merit. We are bringing the proposal to you, and it's outlined there. The process will develop once it is approved by council. How does this roll out? What sort of timelines are we on? When are we launching it, for instance? The other message I bring tonight is that the arts are very significant to the community, not just in terms of the quality of life and our culture here, but they are a significant addition to our economic development plan. Ontario Arts Council has done a lot of work on this. Every community benefits from the arts in terms of the commitment of people who volunteer their time and overwhelmingly commit their own money and generate a lot of action and a lot of activity. Over the past weekend, of course, we had this studio tour that was very well attended. Several artists were able to sell their works. It brought people in from out of town. So we cannot forget that economic development goes hand in hand with arts and culture. I remind you, you don't have to look very far, but if you go to communities such as Prince Edward County, Gananoque, City of Kingston, etc., they make a tremendous effort to generate economic development by supporting the arts. Finally, I would just remind you, Council had a difficult year last year looking at the budget. Arts and culture, a committee of volunteers. We went through a situation where we had a 25% cut in the budget. I haven't looked to see what other budget cuts amounted to that much, but I encourage you to restore that shortfall this year. And I'll leave you at that point. And if you have any questions for us, we'd be happy to entertain them.
Thanks, gentlemen. Just hang tight and we'll see if council has any comments or questions for you. Does anybody have any comments or questions for David Ennis? Councillor Shank.
As everybody in the municipality and anybody who's a resident of the town of Greater Napanee, of course, they should be supporting arts and culture. It's a part of your being almost. It's like the historical society. You know what I mean? It brings back the history. It brings other things. It gets the younger people. I just remember I had seen Tim Nimigan there a little while ago, and he was the arts teacher, you know what I mean? And how many people he influenced over his time. So as a budget, that's Mr. Grant in a budget process. We can't jump the gun there, but I think we should definitely, give this back to our staff to see what they can do and what you guys would like, and you know what I mean, to have a fulsome report back to council, so something we can discuss, especially during budget deliberations, or what you would want. But I'm not throwing it under the rug, don't get me wrong by any means, Dennis, but there's a process that we have to follow with all proceedings. But I think for myself, hey, we have to, bring it back to what it was, and with your effort and with all the volunteers that are doing, with Bob as your, I think it's something we should definitely look at supporting.
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Shank. Is there anything else? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to agree with Councillor Shank is that I think for a community such as ours to be diversified and to try and have as many different views and thoughts and events within our community, I think is going to make us a healthier and a stronger community. As Councillor Shank said, normally with respect to deputations, we're not here in a position to make a decision this evening. But what we would like to do is send this back to staff and bring a report back just to identify how this would work, some costs that are associated to it, and just the overall management of it. So I'm quite certain that staff can have that report probably processed fairly quickly. So I think that's probably what we will do. But we thank you for all the hard work that you do for doing the things that you do, and we'll definitely get we'll get some information for you in the very near future. So
Thanks for listening to us.
yes, we appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Just for our CIO, so Matthew, if you could look into, I'm not sure if it applies or if it's even we can do it, but the Tura granting, because if that falls under that premise also, I'm not sure, but something to look at also.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Councillor Shank, and go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Just a quick question. I think it's a wonderful idea, and it will certainly, excuse me, make up for the shortfall that we're seeing in the education system, which sees consistent cutbacks to this type of programming. Are you talking about a monetary award as well, or this is, it's the glory, not the money, so to speak?
it is our hope that there will be some small amount attached to it as recognition of the importance of the contribution to the arts. Our proposal tonight is merely seeking your endorsement. We are not here with a budget asking specifically for money for an awards program. That process will roll out once we know that we have your encouragement to be able to go forward with that process. This is step one.
And we would also be promoting the event in the business community and hoping there could be a couple of awards named after a business or after a well-known arts person. So we would be going to the private sector as well, yes, if we can show we have your support.
Yep, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. May I make a motion to note and receive?
Yeah, and I will add a little bit to it if you wish, to note and receive. The deputation of Dennis Mills and David Ellis regarding the proposed Arts and Culture Awards, and further that council direct that a report be brought back to the next meeting that provides additional details of the proposed new awards program, including any budget impacts. Does that sort of cover it?
Thank you. You took the words out of my mouth.
Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, fellas. I think you're on the right track, and we look forward to talking to you in the near future. Next up is a deputation from Jane Lovell, Adolphustown-Fredericksburgh Heritage Society Community Signs Project. Yep, good evening, ma'am. Yeah, I don't know if you've been here or not, but the microphone in front of you, it's got the two buttons. The button on the right is the talk button. As you speak, you have to hold the button down, and then when you're done speaking, just let the button up. And whenever you're ready, the floor will be yours.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you, Mayor Richardson and Council, for receiving my deputation. As was mentioned, my name is Jane Lovell. I am a member of the Adolphustown-Fredericksburgh Heritage Society. Councillor Schenk and I hail from Fourth Town, which is the name of the old name of Adolphustown Township. When the United Empire Loyalists landed in Adolphustown on June 16th, 1784, the survey of the 5 Cataraqui townships was near completion. Initially simply numbered, the townships were soon given names, were named after King George III and some of his children. So for example, first town was Kingstown, then there was Ernesttown, Fredericksburgh, Adolphustown, and in Prince Edward County, there was Marysburg. The fourth town, or Adolphustown, was the last to have its survey completed. This happened 3 months after the arrival of the refugees and was exactly 240 years ago next Monday. The Adolphustown-Fredericksburgh Heritage Society would like to mark the 240th anniversary of the founding of Adolphustown and Fredericksburgh by putting up signs along municipal and county roads entering the former townships. These signs would give the name of the former township, its date of founding, and the historic numeric name. So what I'm asking of council is that they approve this project. We have talked to the town and the county, and they're fine with this happening. And if it were approved, we would further like to ask council to consider assisting us in lowering the overall cost of the project by waiving or reducing the equipment, the labor and equipment costs for the installation.
Great, ma'am. Thank you. Just hang tight. We may have some questions, and we'll go from there. So does anybody have any questions for Jane with respect to her presentation or report? Go ahead, Councillor Purnell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Thanks, Jane, for coming in and talking to us today regarding this. Just wondering, how many signs are you looking to get installed?
There are 18 signs.
18 of them, okay, thanks. And you are looking for this to be approved before the 240th anniversary? Okay, thanks.
Right. It would be nice if it were in the year. The other consideration is actually getting the signs erected before frost. So I don't know if the augers, can go through crunchy frozen ground to put the signs in, but that would be a goal. The timeline, it's short simply because it took us a long time to get to this point. But once we have permission, we have the design ready and the town is prepared to submit these to the sign manufacturer on our behalf. We would be paying for this. We're hoping to get a grant. So that's the next step for us, is to get a grant to pay for this. And why we're asking that the town to be involved is in reducing the cost by things that don't actually cost the town anything. I'm assuming the town staff who would be doing this work are paid regardless of what they're doing otherwise. So it's not an extra cost to the town. For the equipment, obviously there's gas and wear and tear and so on. So, we would hope that there'd be a reduction. But town staff has given estimates for the cost of the labor and the equipment for the installation. But we're really hoping that things that don't cost the town anything or taxpayers, you would consider that this could be waived or reduced for us.
Great, thanks, ma'am. Thank you, Councilor Brunel. Is there anything else? Councilor Martin.
I think your overall project's an excellent idea, because there's nothing certainly wrong with recognizing the sum of our parts for the community. And as far as the town contributing, I can't make that decision personally, but I would recommend that we do an in-kind type of deal and contribute in some way. Maybe, Mayor, should I make a motion to that effect, that we do an in-kind contribution?
Councilor,
Labor of the...
What I was going to suggest is that I think we have a little bit of time. We've got another meeting in 2 weeks, and I know that you want to try and get some funding applications done. And I think, if memory serves me right, is the funding applications need to be in by the end of the month?
Yes, if it's going through the Greater Napanee Community Fund. That is not a big fund, and the total of this would exceed their entire budget. So we're probably going to Achura, which doesn't have a deadline. So you're off the hook a little bit there, but I would like to get this in the works soon. I don't know how long that process would take. And if, as I say, it's a goal to actually do it in the 240th year. If we can't, we can't. But I mean, there was some precedent in former years for the in-kind. There was something called Town of Greater Napanee Municipal Community Grants Policy. I found it online. There was an apparent date of 2023, but the last revision was 2019. But I don't think it's in use now. I think it's going through the Community Foundation. But it did explicitly talk about direct in-kind assistance from municipal staff, wages waived or reduced, use of municipal equipment, rental fee waived or reduced. So.
And just to build on that, I'm hoping, or I'm thinking, that we may have a little bit of time. I think staff, and talking to staff, I think they have the ability to come back fairly quickly with a report that will just allow us to do our due diligence on it. I think what you're hearing this evening is that there probably is going to be some support here amongst council, but we just need to do our due diligence on it. So if we can buy a couple of weeks and we bring a report back on the 24th, do you think that would put us in a good position for you to continue your work? I know that if you're going to make applications, you could probably already start writing your applications. And then once we give you the go ahead, if that's the direction we're going, you could do that on the 24th. Can we buy a couple of weeks, do you think? Do you think we're in a position to do that?
Absolutely. I give you permission to give me 2 weeks or to give yourself 2 weeks.
We
Um,
we do appreciate that. It just allows us to do our due diligence on it. Usually with deputations, we unless it's extremely time sensitive, we just like to do our due diligence just so that everybody knows and it's transparent and open. So we appreciate that. I think there is a will of council, at least I'm sensing that there's probably support here. We just got to ensure that the due diligence that we do on it is open and transparent. So if it's good with you, we'll look for a motion to note and receive your presentation or your deputation, and we'll instruct staff to bring back a report at our next regular session of council, which would be the 24th of September, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Madam Clerk. Yes. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Here's another organization I think that we, in principle, can support. Like we're going to get the report back, but Adolphustown, which is close and dear to my heart, which I've lived pretty well most of my life, it was settled by Peter Van Alstyne. All right, and then you had South Fred that was Rogers Rangers, and if the mount, and you'll see this go. Sure, this is starting here, but Richmond's got a ton of history, you know what I mean? And all the old former, the town of Greater Napanee, North Fred, you know what I mean? How it was done. And on all these signs, you'll see this hopefully spread. So when you're doing that report, this is maybe the first step, but as it goes, it's when you're driving along, if you drive out west and you see this and see that, I stop at those little kiosks, Escape of the Royal George. How many people have stopped and looked at that? You know what I mean? At the Gap down there. So, I mean, the first, windmill and, that, all those little locations. And it's part of tourism, it's part of history, economic. And it's amazing how many people originally came from Adolphustown and South Fred and how they spread into different areas. And so I think it's, in principle, I don't believe you have any problems, but we have to follow the process. And I agree with the mayor.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Shank. And we do. We live in a historic community. It's something that a lot of people don't have. And so I think and I've said this many times, that I think we need to exploit it as best that we can. And the signage, and I've seen some pictures of some of the signage, and I think it's very tasteful, and it will help to showcase the rich history that we do have here. So thank you, ma'am. And we do have a motion on the floor. If there's no further comments or questions or concerns. Yep, we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. And you're more than welcome to come back on the 24th and see the report and listen to the discussions that we're going to have. So thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Next matter on our deputation is the United Way KFL&A banner program. Welcome, folks. And I know you probably haven't been here, but I know you've watched the first couple of deputations. Just to recap, that the microphones in front of you are more for the folks that are watching at home than us. So I would just ask that when you're ready to speak, just to push the button on the right that says talk. And when you're done speaking, just let it go. And once you're done your presentation or your deputation, just hang tight in case we have some questions for you. So thanks whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Your Worship, Councillors. My name is Chris Emmons. I am a campaign officer for United Way KFL&A. I'm accompanied with my colleague Barb Lovell, our campaign director. It's estimated that 1 in 4 Canadians are using or will need to use charitable services over the next year for basic necessities. In many instances, individuals are accessing multiple services just to meet day-to-day needs, such as food and shelter. In 2023, over 71,000 people in Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington area were helped through United Way funded programs. From 2022 to 2023, United Way KFL&A provided a grant to Morningstar Mission towards a van for transportation for their program services. And over the past 2 years, the local Salvation Army received roughly 250 backpacks and supplies to assist children in starting the school year. Other initiatives like United Way Warm Winter Coat Drive and Tampon Tuesday benefit agencies here in Napanee and in the LNA area. Our community's United Way could not do this without the help of over 100 workplaces in the KFL&A area who run workplace campaigns such as Goodyear and Quinte Detention Center, and as well the support of our community partners and businesses. Currently, United Way offers a sponsorship opportunity to businesses in the Kingston area to show community support by purchasing a banner displaying the organization's logo with the United Way logo. These eye-catching banners are showcased on lampposts in the busy downtown Kingston area during the United Way Workplace Campaign, which runs from the first weeks in September until the last weeks of November. United Way KFL&A is seeking to replicate this program in the town of Greater Napanee, and Barb can explain how this program will translate.
Again, thank you for having us and putting us on your agenda. We're very excited to be here with you this evening. So how does the banner campaign work? Well, the United Way first reaches out to our workplaces who run a campaign for us. We ask them if they'd like to support this program and purchase a banner. Some workplaces choose to purchase more than one. We've had workplaces purchase up to 4 to 6 banners. We do have 60 lampposts available in the Kingston area, and we typically do sell out. The United Way pays for the banners to be produced, and the money left over and above the cost of the banners, which have gone up quite a bit in the last couple of years, is basically put back into the community. The Kingston Downtown Business Association supports the United Way with this program. The United Way does not pay for the installation or the taking down of the banners. The banners are installed the week of our kickoff and are taken down just after touchdown. So basically they are on the side streets of Kingston from Division Street down to King from September and beginning the first week of September until the end of November. Not only is this a way for the workplaces and businesses to show their support for their community and their United Way, but it's also a form of advertising for them. So what we are here this evening to ask for is the opportunity to include Greater Napanee in the United Way KFL&A banner program. We would basically reach out to the businesses and workplaces who support the United Way and others to see if they would like to partner with us by purchasing a banner. We have the information in regards to where the banners can be hung in Greater Napanee and how many spots are available. Primary downtown is 26, secondary banners A is 15, secondary banners B is 6, and secondary banners C is 4. We would love to do our best and sell the primary downtown of 26, but as we start the program, we're going to do the best we can to see how it goes. We also understand that the month of November is off the table, and we certainly respect that. We understand that that is for the veterans banners in the town, and that's fine. So I'm thinking the month of September and however long before the veterans go up in November, if we could work with that. And boldly, I know that you have said that they would be charged for installation. I would respectfully ask that that could be waived for the United Way. And if that is an option, we would certainly enjoy the opportunity to have a banner for the councillor, the city of Napanee, as a supporter of the program, as well as the installers, who whatever company that is that helps put them up. So we would offer a free banner to them every year if we didn't have to pay the installation and take down fee. Again, we certainly appreciate having you us on the agenda, and if there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Barb. Thanks, Chris. Is there any questions for Barb or Chris? Councillor Pinnell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Thanks for coming in and talking with us tonight. Just wondering, what is the cost of what would you sell the banners for? What kind of cost?
In Kingston right now, because they get September through December, it's $400 for the banner. And then it was $750 if they ordered, it was $50 off each one after that. So $400 each for the banner cost is just roughly $200 for the cost of the banner.
Okay, thank you. And what do you think that the cost would be for Napanee?
I'm not sure. I would need this. I'm not sure if the size of the banners for your lampposts are the same size as what we have in Kingston. So I would have to get a quote based on the dimensions for what your lampposts take. I'm not sure if they'd be the same size as the one in Kingston or not. I'm assuming they would be. So I'm thinking because it's a shorter time, I would have to get approval from the CEO as far as what the cost would be. But I'm thinking probably it's not going to be what Kingston pays because they're not up as long.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Councillor Nori.
Are you planning for this year? I mean, we're into September and you
Yes.
lost November with us. I'm just curious, are you planting the seed for next year?
We're planting the seed for next year. We would have loved to have had it done and started for this year, but our campaign started Friday. So we're looking to get it going for 2025.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Nori. Is there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, thanks, folks. As you've heard that usually with deputations, we just don't have the ability to make any decisions on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask staff to bring back a report with respect to this. Doesn't sound like it's overly time sensitive for this year. So we do have time to work on it for next year. So we'll ask staff to bring back a staff report just to identify a bunch of the details that we'll need to, and it'll give you folks an opportunity to do a little bit of research on it as well. So, but we appreciate you coming tonight. We appreciate all the hard work that the United Way does within our communities, and I'm always quite impressed with the backpack program. I really am. So, little kids going to school. Some folks just don't have the ability to have knapsacks, and sometimes life can be that simple. So, thank you. So,
thank you.
We'll look for a motion to receive the deputation from the KFL&A United Way regarding the banner program, and further that council direct staff to bring a report to the next meeting regarding the operational and policy impacts of the requested waivers to the town's policy regarding proclamations and banners. Moved by Councillor Nori, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks. We appreciate you coming here this evening. Next up on our agenda is deputations items on the agenda. And first up will be Jeff Chestnut on behalf of the Friends of the Arts Napanee, the Chalk event. Good evening, Jeff. I don't think I really need to go through the process of how this works because I think you may have been here before. So I'll just remind you, though, that when you have to push the button so the folks at home can hear, because I know that they're going to want to hear. So whenever you're ready, the floor will be yours.
Your Worship, Council, and Napanee staff, my name is Jeff Chestnut, and I come tonight representing the Friends of the Arts of Napanee. September 20th and 21st, we would like to invite all to take part in the Napanee Chalk event as our town celebrates the kickoff to Culture Days. The Chalk event will kick off Friday, September 20th. Artists can sign in at Elena's Cafe at 5:30. Artists will be given a piece of sidewalk to do their art. The art will continue at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning, September 21st, on both Dundas Street and Market Square, but will conclude at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning on Dundas to not interfere with the different businesses opening. This is also to allow the business to open and present indoor board pieces that have been done by local artists. Art will continue at Market Square, catering to young artists. Children and youth coming to participate will have chalk supplied, and a mini chalkboard will be available to work on. The north side of Market Square will be for artists who wish to continue after Dundas Street 10 a.m. Wrap up. The Friends of the Arts of Napanee would like have worked with local artists and the support of the downtown businesses. There will be a chalkboard display at the different businesses in downtown. We invite all to come out and participate. Art will be accessible to all locations with tables and paper on areas for those who can't get down and work at sidewalk level. The Friends of the Arts of Napanee would like to thank Ellis Cafe for allowing us to have the many meetings to plan this, Lansing's for providing storage and a place to organize the materials, and Lovely Place for additional areas for kids to have projects on the day of the 21st, as well as allowing artists to pre-do boards for the day of the 21st. I am here this evening to ask if the town has the ability to give the sidewalks a cleaning before the event. Understanding that the budget is complete for this year, we would further request consideration for funding next budget period. As it is a chalk event and not a competition, we as a group are limited this year. If councilors had some idea for a town recognition award for maybe the most appreciated or inspiring piece, would be very appreciated. I hope all councilors will join us on Culture Days along with the residents and visitors that come to Napanee that day. With lots of participation, we can have a great Culture Day experience. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Jeff with respect to his deputation? Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, through you, your worship. Hey, Jeff, thanks for coming. I love this idea. I think it's going to be great. I think hopefully you get a good turnout. My question is, what sidewalks specifically are you doing? Like what blocks? I know obviously between John and Center, but are you going Center to Robinson?
Okay, so the art will be on Dundas Street because I was told we want to keep it contained this year. So the art will be on Dundas Street sidewalks with the downtown businesses. Just Dundas Street and Market Square is closed that day, we believe. So the south side, we were hoping for the children to use as a safe zone and that. And if someone wanted to do like a bigger piece or a more elaborate piece, there are some businesses along Market Square that were interested in doing a board that we would put them on a sidewalk there that was kind of open for the day type thing.
So when I say Dundas Street, like north and south side of Dundas Street, but it would end at John Street, or are you going as far down as east? Just because we're going to probably ask staff to come back to let us know if they can actually clean the sidewalks. And there's no point in doing the whole town if you're specifically looking for.
I understand. It's mostly this side of Center Street, but I don't want to, I know. See, I don't buy women's clothing, but the one store on the corners, Sand and Sea and across the road, I believe, are both taking part too.
Okay, so down past Gray's Drugstore, it would be
Yeah,
that whole
yeah.
block you would want cleaned, and then.
Yeah, just, yeah, the
Then over to
main
and then over to
sidewalks at
East Street?
Dundas Street.
Or-
And the Market Square
Yep, okay.
sidewalks would be, if at all possible. I didn't know if we still had the machine for the sidewalks or not.
No idea. That'll be up to staff, I think. Thank you, though, for clarifying.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Hicks. Is there anything else? Seeing none, I know staff is here, and I can probably leave it in the more than capable hands of Mr. Grant to make those inquiries. I don't want to guarantee anything because I'm not sure what their schedule is, and I know it's a little bit of short notice. So I'm sure that staff will make every opportunity or every attempt to try and get that done. But if not, we do recognize the fact that it's probably something that's going to happen next year as well. And it's probably, it's one of those service levels I think that we need to include or at least talk about with respect to our 2025 budget. So I know Mr. Grant will make some inquiries for tomorrow, Jeff. It's a great idea. I've got an 8-year-old granddaughter that just loves writing on the driveway with chalk. So I'm sure you'll probably see her down there over the course of the weekend. So
Thanks for your consideration and time for this evening.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll look for a motion to note and receive the deputation of Jeff Chestnut, moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next on deputations, items on the agenda is Shauna Perez, dog control bylaw. Good evening, Shauna. You've had the opportunity to watch and see how this works. So you'll see the microphone in front of you. There's a button on the right hand that says talk. Once again, you have to press the button and hold it as you're talking. That way the folks at home will be able to hear what's going on. And whenever you're ready, the floor will be yours.
Thank you for the opportunity to present my request. I'm here to request that the service dog definition be changed in the proposed dog control bylaw. The current definition states that a service dog needs to be certified in writing as having been trained by a professional service animal institution to assist with a disability. Those aren't the exact words. The problem with that is that it's in contrast to provincial legislation and case law. The Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario states that service dogs, with the exception of service dogs for the blind, are not required to be certified or have training from professional animal service institutions. The right to train your own service animal is protected by the Ontario Human Rights Code. So I recognize that components of the service dog definition are similar to what's on the Government of Canada website, especially in the traveling section, I think it is. However, different provinces have different service dog laws, acts, and definitions. The definition used in the Dog Control Act should represent the provincial definition. What I'm proposing is that we use the Ontario Provincial Animal Welfare Service Act definition. I noticed that it was mentioned in the bylaw at least 5 times. That definition is also the same as the definition for that's written on the Government of Canada, the Accessibility for Ontario with Disability Act, the Ontario and the Ontario Human Rights Code. That definition says that the Ontario, it says that a service animal states that an animal is a service animal if the animal is required by a person with a disability for assistance, and if the person has documentation from one of 9 regulated health professions confirming that the person requires the animal for reasons relating to their disability. And in the definition, the 9 different providers are mentioned. And then I also noticed that in the revised bylaw that service dogs were added as an exemption. I was in section 2.4. I think it would be helpful if they were also added as an exemption to the number of dogs registered section. This would be in alignment with the Ontario provincial law and standards that state that service animals are not pets, and requirements or fees pertaining to pets do not apply to service animals. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Yep, just hang tight, Shauna. Council, does anybody have any questions or comments with respect to Shauna's deputation? Councillor Hicks, I see your hand go up.
Actually, thank you, Your Worship, but I just answered my own question. Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Shauna. I know that we're going to have a discussion with respect to that bylaw later this evening. You're more than welcome to sit around and watch how that discussion goes. Thank you. You've provided a fairly detailed deputation request as I'm looking at it on my screen here. So thanks, and that's very helpful. And I know that Madam Clerk has also reviewed it, and we'll see where this goes anyways this evening. But thanks for your deputation, and you're more than welcome to stick around.
Thank you.
We look for a motion to note and receive the deputation of Shauna Perez with respect to the dog control bylaw. It's item 7.2 on our agenda, moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up is unfinished business, which I don't believe, Madam Clerk, we have any. After that, we have the administrative consent agenda. This is usually a fairly lengthy process, but it's fairly quickly once we get going at it. First up is the council minutes for the regular session of council for August 27th, 2024, and the special session of council September 3rd, 2024. Is there anything in those minutes anyone would like to speak to or talk about? Saying none. The next matter is committee minutes, Arts Advisory Committee, Recreation Advisory Committee, and the Municipal Heritage Committee. Is there anything in those minutes, and do the chairs of those committees wish to speak to any of those minutes or those meetings? Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
I'll speak to the Municipal Heritage Committee. I'll have more to say on when we get to item 6.6 and 7.1, but right now I just want to say that we did have a lengthy discussion at our meeting over different topics, including the Adolphustown-Fredericksburgh Historical Society signage project. Most of our meeting was taken up with discussing the Culture Days events. We approved our budget for the Heritage event components of that day. But like I say, we'll have more on 6.6 and 7.1, especially on the plaquing program. Thank you.
Yep, great, thanks. Thank you so much for that, Councillor Martin. Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, I just have a question regarding the recreation minutes. It states in here that the committee would like to get together with the Pool Advisory Committee and talk about transportation of residents to other pools. The pool committee did supply that in a report, in our latest report, which was some time ago. But be happy to review that again with the rec committee. I'm just wondering, I know that the date on the minutes is August the 15th. If we could get a date of what you're looking for to have that conversation, because we are looking to schedule a pool advisory committee meeting, and don't necessarily need the date tonight, but if we could get that sooner or later before we call a meeting. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Pennell. And I know that Deputy Mayor Calver, I think the Recreation Committee is yours as well, so I know that you've taken note of that, and go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Pennell. Yeah, we're actually having a rec meeting on Thursday, September 19th. So if you like, we could maybe schedule a joint meeting where we meet again October 17th as well. So I don't know how quick you can rally your people together, but I'm sure we can, it'd be great to accommodate that and see if we can work something together as a group. That would be great.
Okay, thank you. I will be back in touch with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, gentlemen. Is there anything else with respect to the Arts Advisory Committee, Recreation Advisory Committee, or the Municipal Heritage Committee minutes? Seeing none, moving on. Correspondence for information items dated September 10th, 2024. And Councillor Hicks, I think there's something in there that you'd like to be removed, and we can speak with it later on in the agenda. Am I correct?
Yes, through you, Your Worship, from the Township of Russell regarding the provincial updates to the Municipal Election Act.
Great. Well, we'll remove that and we'll have a discussion with that later on in the agenda. Is there anything else that anyone would like to remove and have a discussion about? Seeing none, the 2025 budget timeline. Is there anything with respect to that report anyone would like to have any discussions about? Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of things before we get to the dates. But as the included documents with this budget, I'm just wondering if with the budget enhancement sheets and the GIS reports, if we're still going to be getting the vehicle condition reports and what has been done to the individual pieces of equipment. I'd still like to see that because we asked for that, and although it's pretty new and there wouldn't be very much documented, but it will still help us with the when it comes budget time.
Yes, thank you. So included in that, in the attachment, there was an additional analysis for fleet management condition. So that's kind of the template that we're looking at to review our fleet. In addition to that, we can pull some additional GIS information if it's available. And also another suggestion that was added since this draft was created was pictures, so we can give you kind of imagery of exactly what equipment we're talking about and where some of the problem areas are. So we will adding that to that fleet condition assessment.
That's great. Thank you very much. My next concern, Your Worship, is the meeting dates that we have. We have some back-to-back dates that are half-day meetings. And my question is, with the half-day meetings, is there any way that we could roll this into a full-day meeting? Just, it's a little hard for myself. I know I'm being selfish here, but a half-day meeting for myself actually turns into a full day, so it'd be 2 days back-to-back. I'm just wondering if staff could look into this.
Thank you. Yes, we can certainly look at the timing of those meetings and the length of them. So we could, ideally, they wouldn't run a full day if we don't need them, but we can certainly look at condensing them. What the approach was this year was to take a more condensed approach and have our meetings closer together rather than having large gaps between our discussions, because we felt we've spent a little bit of extra time kind of filling ourselves back in onto where we were previously. So yes, we're certainly in support of longer, more condensed meetings if that's the desire, Council.
That's great, thank you. And I am in favor of having the close meetings, yes, thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Pennell. Is there anything else with respect to the 2025 budget timeline? Seeing none, the Arts and Culture Committee, Heritage Committee, Culture Days, September 21st. And I believe, Councillor Martin, did you want to speak to that? I know you'd mentioned 6.6 in your previous.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm afraid I'm going to be a little bit long-winded on this, but I wanted to take advantage of the YouTube channel to promote the September 21st event. It's going to be quite an occasion here. So I hope everybody at home can come down September 21st, starting here at Town Hall, 10 a.m. in the morning. I'll let Councillor Nari speak to the arts and culture events part of the day, but the Heritage Committee events I want to speak to. We're going to have a reading of the original 1884 proclamation of the village of Napanee as a new Ontario municipality. We're going to have a guided interpretive walk showcasing heritage buildings with support of the Lennox Theatre Guild, a showcase of historical photos inside Town Hall and 2 of the rooms by the Adolphustown-Fredericksburgh Heritage Society. We also, like I said, I'm going to be long-winded, sorry. We also are going to have a wall of historical photos also inside the town hall on the main floor, presented by our Heritage Committee. We're going to have a display of Napanee's former fire engine, Pump 41, on loan to us from the Coburg Firefighters Museum. Our Heritage Committee's paying the cost of our budget for floating it down here. And I also believe our fire chief is going to have a contingent of our own firefighters here that day, and out in front of the old fire hall, which is right over here across from Town Hall. There's going to be a lot going on September 21st as part of Culture Days. And for you folks watching at home, I hope you plan on attending. Tell your neighbors, tell your family. I do have some people I would like to thank. Jeff Webster has volunteered to be our guide for the tour. Both the committees, I want to thank them for working together so amicably to present Culture Days. And I want to thank the Adolphustown-Fredericksburgh Historical Society for their showcase of historical photos. I want to thank the Lennox Community Theatre and their actors who will be dressed in period costume and hosting each historical building along the way. Also, I'd like to thank Wade Mitchell, who loaned us historical photos that were going to be down in the main floor as well that day. And of course, I'd like to thank Chris Brown and his crew for help getting the downstairs set up and getting the wall available to hang some of those pictures. Andy Manning, of course, too, and all the staff in Napanee that worked on it. I want to thank the Coburg Firefighters Museum. And again, I'd just like to invite everybody here to witness all the events. We've got a town crier coming. We've even invited the first mayor, Mayor Davey, who will be, who, by the way, he studied law with classmate Johnny McDonald, who is also familiar with the town hall here. I'm sure Mayor Davey will have a conversation with our present day mayor, Mayor Richardson. So nobody will want to miss that. So thanks, folks. Sorry for being long-winded. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. And I think I may have a picture of the very first Mayor Davey on my wall in the office. So thanks and a job well done.
He is going to be here that day, even though it's a little over 100 years. People might wonder how we've managed to. We didn't dig him up, but he will be here to have a conversation with our present day mayor.
If you have the ability to do that, I've got a couple other missions I'm going to send you on. So I appreciate that. Councillor Norrie, did you want to add to that?
Just briefly, yeah, there'll be vendors in the market square setting up in the morning. Art, we'll have live music throughout the day. And as you heard from Mr. Chestnut, the art, chalk art, as well as other artists, and some demonstrations and a drumming circle. So just come down and enjoy it. And a lot of the stores are jumping in. They have posters and little pamphlets of times of everything, and it's online too of what's going on as well.
Great, thanks, Bob. Like I say, it sounds like it's going to be a pretty good event. So let's all keep our fingers crossed and hope for some good weather and let's have a lot of fun. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there anything else with respect to the Arts and Culture Committee and Heritage Committee report? Seeing none, moving on to the Growth and Development PLC 2023-031 229-231 Mill Street West part lot control lifting. Is there anything in that report that anyone would like to ask Michael with respect to any of that, or if there's any concerns? Seeing none, we have a memorandum of designated authority 2024 trackless sidewalk machine report. Is there anything in that report that anyone would like to make any inquiries about, or anything that staff would like to highlight? Deputy Mayor Cower, go ahead.
So just to verify, through your worship, just to verify, this is the trackless machine we originally agreed upon ordering?
That's correct.
Okay, so when do we expect this order to be placed, and when do we expect to see it?
The return time is approximately 2 months, so we're hopeful that we'll have it in the month of November.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep, great, thanks. Go ahead, Deputy McGower.
Can I get a follow-up on the plow truck? Is it ordered yet, or?
It was just signed off on this week, so that will be submitted shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Cower. Yeah, I think I've seen that, actually, if I'm not mistaken, on them. So thanks for that. Is there anything else with respect to the delegated authority for the trackless sidewalk machine? Seeing none, moving on to the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 137 outdoor patio barbecue request. Is there anything in that report that anyone would like to speak to or highlight or ask any questions about? Seeing none, proclamation request, National British Home Child Day, National Legion Week, and Rail Safety Week 2024. Is there anything in that report that anyone would like to speak to, or go ahead, Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to speak to the proclamation of National British Home Child Day. It has a bit of a special meaning to me, and in fact, I have a pin here on my lapel I wear in honor of my father, and there's 100,000 children that came from the UK to Canada to work on farms and households from 1869 to 1948. And there was and kids from toddlers to 18 from all over the UK. So I just wanted to recognize that, and it's like I say, it's a special meaning to me. And since my father came here in 1924, it's 100 years since he came over. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you for the personal part of it.
No, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Martin. And I do recall, I think even last year, I think you made mention to it, and it is really quite a story. So thank you for bringing attention to that. Is there anything else? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion that council consent to the approval of the following routine items: that the minutes of the regular session of council dated August 27th, 2024, and the special session of council dated September 3rd, 2024, be adopted as presented; that the Arts Advisory, Recreation Advisory, and Municipal Heritage Committee minutes of July 30th, August 19th, 2024 be received for information; that the correspondence for information items dated September 10th, 2024 be received; that council receive for information financial services reports 2025 budget timeline; that council receive for information Arts and Culture Committee and the Heritage Committee Culture Days September 21st, 2024 report; and further that council approve the temporary road closure of Market Square for September 21st, 2024 to accommodate the Culture Days programming; that council receive for information the Growth and Development PLPLC 2023-031, 229-231 Mill Street West reapplication to lift part lot control renewal due to bylaw expiring on the title report; and further that council approve the implementing bylaw; that council receive for information the memorandum of delegated authority for a sidewalk machine under the procurement policy bylaw; that council receive for information the correspondence from the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 137 dated August 22nd, 2024 regarding a temporary outdoor patio; and further that council of the town of Greater Napanee has no objections to the proposed temporary extended license and patio area in front of Branch 137 of the Royal Canadian Legion at 26 Mill Street East, Napanee, Ontario, in order to host an outdoor barbecue on September 28th, 2024 from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. That council receive for information and endorse the proclamations for the National British Home Child Day, National Legion Week, and the Rail Safety Week 2024. Moved by Councillor Norrie, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up, items for consideration. We'll start out with the support resolution, AMCTO recommendations for provincial updates to the Municipal Elections Act. And I believe Councillor Hicks, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Your Worship. I would like to make a motion that the town of Greater Napanee supports the resolution of the Township of Russell supporting the AMCTO provincial updates to the Municipal Elections Act. And further that council direct that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Township of Russell, the Honorable Paul Calendra, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Honorable Jill Dunlop, Minister of Education, the Honorable Todd J. McCarthy, Minister of Public and Business Service Delivery, the Honorable Peter Bethlenfalvy, Minister of Finance, and the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, Rick Brazé, MPP, and the AMCTO.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks, and you're making that by way of motion. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Shank. Does anybody want to have any discussion with that or any kind of an explanation? Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Those of us that went through the last municipal election, I leave it to the clerk because she probably experienced more. This is in support of her role and that of clerks across Ontario. The voters list, I know, is still something of a contentious issue. And I see Madam Clerk nodding her head. So if you get any information on that, Jessica, I'd like to know if there's been any movement on improving the way that's handled moving forward after this. Thank you.
Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, I will just say for our next municipal election, the responsibility for the voters list has now moved from MPAC to Elections Ontario. So this will be our first run with a new voters list system. So I would expect some hiccups, but they will also have a provincial election to update the voters list data before the municipal election. So we should be hopefully better placed than we were for the previous election, and more information as we know it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks, and thank you, Madam Clerk. And I know that at a couple of, would have been a couple or maybe one or two conferences ago, I had the opportunity to sit in on a luncheon with the folks from Elections Ontario that have guaranteed this is going to be just seamless and it's going to move along very well. So time will tell. We do have a motion on the floor. If there's nothing further, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Heritage Committee proposed Heritage Plaque Program update. Who will be speaking to that? Is that you, Madam Clerk?
Through your worship, I can provide a brief summary of this report, but I believe Councillor Martin may also wish to, he referenced wanting to speak to this as well. So this report is coming to council. There was a plaquing program adopted by the Heritage Committee in 2011, which remains posted on the town's website, but has not been actively used in quite some time, and has not had budget support for several years. So during the last budget, council did agree to provide budget support for the renewal of this program. The committee has made some recommendations on simplifying and clarifying some of the rules as to how this would work. So there is a proposed updated document attached for council's consideration. If council is supportive, the committee would look to promote this program at the Culture Days event in 2 weeks' time. The biggest change is to split the program into 2 streams, one for designated properties, which will continue to have the granite etched plaques that you see at some buildings such as McPherson House and the County Courthouse, and a homeowner stream that is more cost effective and could be purchased by homeowners who are interested in showcasing the history of their properties. But the committee would also like to propose, subject to annual budget availability, that there be a small number sponsored by the committee each year to help grow the program. Those would be for properties of noted and documented historical interest and value to the community. Yeah, if there's any questions, myself or Councillor Martin would be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any questions? Did you want to weigh in first, Bill, or before we ask?
I
for any
can't say
questions?
too much more than what Madam Clerk has already done, except I am excited about this designated plaque, because there's no restrictions applying to people. And, you know, a lot of people have concerns to designate a historic house or a building because they're restricted in certain things. So this non-designated portion of the plaquing, I'm looking forward to getting into. So, but Madam Clerk did a great job. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Martin. Is there any questions or comments with respect to the report or the presentation? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the Heritage Committee proposed Heritage Plaque Program Update Report, and further that council support the proposed program update and adopt the draft policy as presented. Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comment, yep, go ahead, Mike.
See, I agree with this. Now, how does this tie in with what Adolphustown Heritage, South Fredericksburgh Heritage, with the signs that they're doing? Does this have any budgetary impacts besides, okay, go ahead, Jessica. Push the button, sorry.
I was just
All
going to
right.
remind you, Mike.
So here we go. So I agree with the process, and I agree with the plaque program. I just don't want to see any other agencies that are any historical things that they're trying also get, you know, kicked to the side or whatever. And I know there's only so much money out there. So I just like to bring that to, am I dreaming here, or is there some validity to what I'm saying?
I think Madam Clerk will be able to clarify what I'm thinking.
So through your worship, the budget for this program, I believe, is substantially smaller than for road signs. The small homeowner plaques are about $50 to produce. The committee would be looking to sponsor a maximum of 10 of those a year, so $500. So it's not a huge outlay, and it is subject to council's approval every year at budget time. If the, and I believe in the report it's referenced, we would also suggest a report annually to council just on how the program is doing, how many plaques have been issued and approved by the committee, just to also keep that annual awareness about the program.
Great, thanks, Councillor Shank. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. So while we're on the topic, if it's a non-designated property, is someone fact checking what the homeowner is? And you can answer that question. Thank you.
Through Your Worship, yes, we would encourage the homeowners to fact check themselves prior to submitting an application and to let us know what references they're using. And then the Heritage Committee would most likely also double check those references prior to signing off on a plaque.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Hicks. Is there anything else? I think we have a resolution on the floor, if I'm not mistaken, Madam Clerk. If there's nothing else, we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor. Opposed, motion's carried. Executive Services Update to Dog Control Bylaw Review. And is that yours, Madam Clerk?
So through Your Worship, this report is a follow-up to a report from the June 11th meeting where we originally proposed to council the questions we were planning to ask through our public consultation as we update our dog bylaw, which is almost 10 years old. We had a fairly good engagement with the page with 178 survey responses. And the recommended changes to the bylaw are based largely on what we heard through that survey. We also would be welcoming any additional council feedback. I know through some communication in advance of this meeting, certainly we would want to make sure we include a definition of an appeals committee. I do know operationally, we certainly do not count service dogs towards the maximum dog number in any household at this time, but it does never hurts to codify that officially within your bylaw. So that feedback has been heard. And if there is any additional anything else that has jumped out through this report that council thinks would be important to include. But the biggest change is around the number of dogs being permitted per household. We're standardizing that to 3 rather than having a different level depending on what type of housing unit you're in, as well as adding some language around if you previously had licensed legal dogs and your housing situation changes so that you're over the limit, you can still keep your dogs for the lifetime of those dogs. That could be if somebody moves from another jurisdiction that has a higher limit. That could be if, for example, if 2 people each had 2 dogs, but then your parents need to move in with you with their 2 dogs and you have 2 dogs, nobody has to give up a dog if everybody was licensed before the date of that move, just to try to recognize that people's housing situations can change, and pets are very important to people. As well as the biggest other change that staff wanted to make was clarifying how our kennels are described, because that is the #1 area operationally that we get a lot of questions about. And so we wanted to make sure that was a lot clearer in this version.
Thanks, Madam Clerk. Is there any questions or comments for Jessica with respect to her report or her presentation? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Through you, Your Worship. Jessica, what is the cost of DocuPet? I'm just curious as to what the town pays for that online.
So through Your Worship, the way DocuPet's model is it's a fee for service. So every month they deduct, they hold back a portion of the revenue they collect for us. So they charge us in the range of, and I will get you a more detailed report on this in the coming very soon. No. Our contract's up in November, so I do need to bring a report to council before November. And I want to say it's in the range of $3 per tag that they process. For that fee, they mail out reminders to people. They mail the tags out to people. If somebody wants to order a customized tag, that's a cost they pay on their end. We don't pay that cost. And they have an online platform that is accessible 24/7 to the Humane Society and to our enforcement officers. If they find a dog at 10 o'clock at night and they have a tag number, they can look it up. They don't need a town staff person. As a manager of this service, that to me is the most valuable piece of this program, but I do know the ability to renew your dog tag at 365 days instead of at January 1 is also a very valuable piece. But as to the precise what it is costing us compared to if we were to go back to selling them at the desk, that will come in a future report.
It's probably more cost effective than selling them at the desk, would be my assumption, but I'll wait for the report. And I have one other request. I assume that if we note and receive this, that you're going to take into consideration the deputation and the points brought forward earlier. I'm just looking to reassure Ms. Perez.
Through your worship, yes, certainly that would be staff's intent.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Is there anything else? Councillor Hicks.
For those, through you, your worship, for those that are watching that may have completed the survey or that will watch later, I would just like to stress that the town of Greater Napanee does not own and has never owned the Napanee Fairgrounds. We have no jurisdiction. That is private property. I did see repeated comments. I read through every survey comment. So I'd just like to make that clear. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Is there anything else? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the executive services update to the dog control bylaw review report, and further that council consider a bylaw to replace bylaw 2015-0067, being a bylaw to regulate the licensing of dogs and for regulating the running at large and control of dogs at its next regular meeting, subject to any feedback provided up to and during this meeting this evening. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. The next up is the Town of Greater Napanee GIS report. And Mr. Grant, you're going to speak to that?
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Matthew Grant. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer of the Town of Greater Napanee. Earlier this summer, council may recall that we received correspondence from the County of Lennox and Addington with respect to participating in an overall data strategy that would incorporate themselves, us, and other municipalities on how best to participate. That is something that council endorsed and something that we should absolutely participate in. Subsequent to that, staff undertook a broader survey of all of our departments just to take a look at how were we collecting data, how were we using data, how is data shared, what platforms were we using, and in essence, what is our data maturity of the organization? And I would suggest that, our GIS specialist, Diana Tyner, did, I would say, more than I was expecting in the form of a 230-page report, which I am almost all the way through. But at a high level, I would say that the organization has some challenges with respect to data maturity. And what I mean by that is every department is doing their best to both collect data, use data, and bring that forward to council so we can make data-informed decisions. I would say across the corporation, there's different levels of capabilities. There's different software that is being used. there is different methodologies to some of that collection. And that does present some challenges. By way of example, if we were coming forward and we wanted to present a broader perspective of fleet using all of our vehicles, you may not find the exact same methodology across all departments of people that are using vehicles. And I would think, in my perspective, is that if council is going to make an informed decision, they can create, you can have an apples to apples comparison as best as we can do between heavy vehicles, light fleet, and other things that we're asking you to consider using the same methodology, whether it be kilometers, age, that sort of thing. And I would say, as an organization, we don't have the maturity to do that effectively across the board. And so moving forward, what I'm recommending is that we participate in a data strategy with the county. Where possible, we take advantage of the Esri suite of products that they offered us. That is one of the products that we are using. It's not the only product that we're using. And so as we go through reviewing the exhaustive review that's been done, we should take a look at where is our level of expertise, best suited. It may be that suite of products, it may be another suite of products, but we should absolutely engage in that strategy and come up with a data sharing agreement with the county, particularly where we have data sharing requirements. So we can make sure that, when we're collaborating with our partners, that we're sharing information in a way that is understood and accepted by both parties. Further to that, I am recommending that, council receive the report and direct us to bring forward a training strategy, particularly in the areas of fleet, facilities, and roads. Those are some of our biggest spends. And I think it's important for us to find a uniform data methodology and collection process so we can present you the best information that is uniform across the board. I'll have more to say on that in the coming weeks about how else that we're going to be able to make that happen. But I think it's important for us to tell you what it would take specifically for us to have a uniform data strategy across those areas specifically. That would provide the organization an example of what we're trying to achieve and how we make data-informed decisions and present that information to council, which I know that you've requested. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions from council.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there any questions or comments for Mr. Grant with respect to his presentation report? Go ahead, Councillor Pinnell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, thank you, Matthew, for bringing this to our attention and presenting this to us. My question is would there be a probationary period with this, or are we going to jump in with both feet? And do we have an exit strategy? And the reason why I'm asking this is that we were already in a shared agreement with the county on some other programs, and we found out that it's not user-friendly or doesn't work with the programs that we already have. So I'm just a little concerned that we're going to go through a bunch of work to provide this data just to find out that it's not really conducive to what we want. And I'm just wondering if we do have that, some sort of a probationary period on this and an exit strategy.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Pinnell. I'm going to repeat your question back to you to make sure I understand it. But I think what I heard was if we engage in this overarching strategy that the county is undertaking, do we have the ability to not participate if we find that it's not working for us? And I think that was the essence of your question.
Yes, I guess that was the easy way to put it, and probably the most direct. Correct. Yeah, I think you're right.
Fair enough. And so, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Pinnell, I would answer it this way. With regards to any purchasing that needs to be made, we're already doing that. So we pay an annual licensing fee for software that was originally purchased by the county, and we continue to do that to this day. My recommendation is more of a framework about how specifically are we sharing data? What format does it come in? What specifically is the county looking for from us? You know, and we'll have further conversations. I'm not sure exactly what the county has in mind for this strategy, but I would say that in our participation with them, whether it be provided with the Esri suite of products that we're using or a different product, if to your point, we find that it's not exactly the most compatible with the other things that we're doing in the organization, we still commit to having that data sharing strategy that we're able to provide them information in a format that they find usable. And I'm thinking specifically around the data they may want to collect from us for clearing of county roads. And so I think that the strategy that I'm recommending is more about the data and the format in which it's presented, and not necessarily the software in which it's collected.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Pennell. Is there anything else? Councillor Hicks.
Thank you through you, your worship. Matthew, are we currently using Argus? Like, so when I read the report, I know that the county is using Esri and Argus is a subset of Esri, and then you've got Brightly Predictor and CityWorks and all this other sort of thing. We're currently using some of those platforms within Esri. Am I reading this correctly? I need a 2-hour session with somebody so I can understand this without slowing down the meeting, but is that correct? Am I correct in that assumption?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hicks. I would say that in fairness, we would all need a 2-hour session. We have a 230-page report to get through. So that's a fair comment. I would say depends on what department you're looking at, depends on what process that you're looking at. And so I think what the report attempts to highlight here is we have a siloed approach in many areas to data collection and data sharing. Not all of our systems talk to each other. So even those that are using the Esri suite of products for certain functions, there might be another department that's using a different software for a similar function that may not speak to each other in a way that we might like. So what we're recommending as we go through this, as you know, the senior leadership team and their teams review the essence of that report in tandem with participating with the county with their strategy, we want to identify, okay, what is the platform that is the easiest for us to adopt to make sure that we're able to have similar methodology for collecting data, sharing data, providing you with information that allows us to give you across the corporation look at a business line. Start with fleet, facilities, and roads because those are some of our biggest spends. If it happens to be the Esri suite of products that we find is the easiest for us to use, great. If it's something else, the data sharing agreement itself will allow us to make sure that whatever platform we're using, we're able to provide information to our partners in a format that they find usable. Ideally, that would be through the Esri suite of products, but that's not a guarantee until we dig in and do the work. And I think that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Hicks. Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Matthew, it's an excellent idea. It's excellent. You have to have the data to go ahead and make an informed decision. I'd throw emergency services in there also. All right. Like what has been, and you'll find out you cannot make an informed decision unless you know exactly what it's costing us, what has been downloaded to us, what they're maybe not carrying their fair share, what we might not be carrying our fair share, but we can't make any of those decisions unless we have that data. So I'm in full support of when it comes to computers or what process don't even ask me. It would take me way more than 2 hours, probably 2,000 hours. Right. So I'll leave it. And I just like to get in hard print and that'd be great for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. Is there anything else with respect to Mr. Grant's presentation or report? Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship, I'll move staff recommendation.
We have a motion to move staff recommendation by Councillor Hicks. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Shank. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor, opposed, motion's carried. Bylaws. First up is bylaw number 2024-0051, lift part lot control. And we spoke to this briefly with respect to item 6.7 on the agenda. We'll look for a motion to put this on the floor, and we'll do our 3 readings. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 10th day of September 2024. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next bylaw is bylaw number 2024-0052 to appoint members of the Lennox and Addington OPP Detachment Board. We'll look for a motion to put it on the floor. Moved by Deputy Mayor Cower, second by Councillor Martin. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 10th day of September 2024. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Information reports from members. Do any members of council have any information reports they'd like to express? Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I attended the Cataraqui Region Conservation Authority budget meeting last week, and we directed staff to come back with a request with a budget that's less than last year. And so they are going back to meet that challenge. So hopefully I didn't bring my sticky note that I wrote the date on, but I believe by November they're presenting to the municipalities. And I think Mr. Grant has already met with David Ellingwood, the new general director. So, okay. Thank you. That's
Great.
it.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks, for that update. Is there anything else? Seeing none, moving on, inquiries. Do any members of council have any inquiries they want to make of staff? Now's the time to do it if they do. Seeing none, notices of motion. Do we have any notices of motion this evening? Perfect. We do have a notice of motion. I believe it's Councillor Norrie's motion. Did you wish to present that for discussion, Councillor Norrie?
Yes, please.
We have a recommendation that the town give the remainder of the money owing to the Lennox and Addington Seniors Outreach Service minus the in-kind of $4,680 and $15,000 already received of an amount of $17,320 to meet the town's yearly obligation of 20% to the L&A Seniors Outreach Service. Moved by Councillor Norrie, seconded by Councillor Martin. Is there any discussions or comments with respect to that motion? Go ahead, Councillor Norrie.
I know I've gone on this many other times, but just so you know, they are getting their SALC funding, SALC. I don't know what the acronym is from the Ontario government, because we said they'll get their 20% from us. So they're already receiving it, and they want to keep getting it. Okay, that's it in a nutshell.
Thanks, Councillor Norrie. And I think probably in the not too distant future, we should be probably receiving a request from them with respect to the 2025 budget.
I have some proposals for that, yes, in one of our full day meetings.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. We do have a motion on the floor. I think, Madam Clerk, we got a mover and a seconder. If there's nothing further, is there any further conversations? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up is our new business. And Councillor Pennell, did you want to go first with respect to the new business? I'll open the floor up to you. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship, through you. During our last meeting at council, the council directed the Market Square Advisory Committee to prepare reports to be presented to council in regards to town hall here, and with what the recommendations would be going forward, with whether it would be external works that need to be done or internal fit ups and works to be done inside, that sort of thing. So however, prior to us having a meeting and discussing this, some other information has come to light about the town hall. And I believe that this information would be beneficial to the Market Square Advisory Committee to have this information prior to us going forward and producing a report for council. So I do have a motion and would like to read the motion, then we can open it up for discussion if that's fine.
Yep, great. Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Okay, thank you. I make a motion that the council direct staff to prepare a report for the September 24th meeting that outlines the potential risk of hazardous substances being released by a renovation to the interior of Town Hall, as well as any remedial recommendations. And further, that council direct that this report be shared with the Market Square Advisory Committee prior to the committee providing recommendations for the interior.
Great, thanks, Councilor Pennell, and you're making that by way of motion.
I am, yes. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there any comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Is there any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Grant.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council. So, following the retirement of General Manager Zetterberg, I've taken over an interim support for the Market Square Advisory Committee and reviewing some of the materials that are available to us. One thing that has come to light is we actually have done some significant due diligence with respect to this heritage facility. One of the documents, and I will ask, Mr. Brown to weigh in afterwards if you have anything to add. One of the documents we've done is an assessment of the materials within the structure of the building, particularly the interior walls of the building. And like many buildings of this vintage, there are some materials within the walls and within the lights that are no longer recommended for construction and that are completely safe, provided they are left undisturbed. If we begin opening up some of those walls or moving things around, which could influence how the building would be used, we would have to do so in a very deliberate way, in a very safe way, which may come with costs. And I think it would be incumbent upon us to bring a report forward to council to provide you with an update of this is specifically, what would be required if we were going to remove some of the walls downstairs. Because as I spoke with Councillor Pennell the other day about the design of the building downstairs, I would suggest would directly influence the type of use you would be able to use in that space. So bringing that forward to council for their review, as well as to the advisory committee, may influence either the types of activities that they would recommend using in the facility, or even the sequencing of how that work would be done. So by example, you might decide, or that the committee might decide that they want to favor outdoor use as opposed to indoor use to do more research. I will leave that up to the committee to make those recommendations, which are already coming in. But it's important to probably have that information in their hands beforehand, because it might influence the kinds of recommendations they're making to council. And I don't know if you have anything to add, Mr. Brown.
I would just add that we did we retained Pynchon to do a hazardous building materials assessment in March of 2023. And that report can be forwarded, as CAO Grant has said, tomorrow morning, just so everyone has the same findings. There's a summary of findings, recommendations for remediation, and what to do and what not to do that can guide us forward.
Great, thanks, gentlemen. Thanks, Councilor Pennell. Is there any other questions or comments that have come out of the discussions here? Seeing none, we do have a motion on the floor. If there's nothing further, we'll call for the vote of the motion. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up, I just thought it was important at our September 3rd meeting, we had a public meeting with respect to some deputations with respect to an unhoused persons or homeless situation we have in the municipality. We had approximately 240 people attend. 760 were tuning in live to the meeting. And since that time, we're up over 2,700 views of that meeting. So it would appear as it's very, very important to our municipality. And I would just like to ask Mr. Grant, he's got some very good ideas going forward. He'll be looking for some direction, I believe, but I would like to ask Mr. Grant to just advise everyone here tonight and all those that are watching what our plans are going forward and where we're going to go with this. So go ahead, Mr. Grant.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council. So I would suggest following, before and after that meeting, we've heard from members of the public. I've spoken with several members of council about the concerns that we heard, which were varied. And there's a couple of different stages that I think we should reiterate. A couple of things that we're doing already that we should talk about, and then also a plan moving forward, because what I think I have heard, obviously from members of the public as well as from members of council is, and I think you also said it yourself at that meeting, Your Worship, is we're going to use everything in our toolbox to help manage this particular situation in a way that is respectful of case law. And by way of reminder, case law is that if there is not enough housing or shelter space, and in Napanee there is currently no shelter space, but if there's not enough, then you can't remove people from all public spaces. And so that is a matter of managing the issue. And we are working with our partners at Perez, who are responsible for housing and homelessness, as well as our other partners. But there's a number of things in our toolbox that we're going to bring forward in the coming weeks and as well in the coming months. So in the immediate future, what council and members of the community are going to see is a parks bylaw that encompasses an encampment protocol that is specifically designed to give predictability to the community about where encampments are and are not allowed. And as I mentioned, with current case law, they are to be permitted in certain areas if there's not enough housing for all individuals. That particular protocol would suggest distances from sensitive areas, including playgrounds, daycares, that sort of thing. And it also recommends a broader, sensitive area, which we had recommended as Conservation Park, only because that's the #1 area that we'd received the most complaints. In the coming weeks, starting on the 16th, there'll be an online engagement portal that is opened. It will provide some education opportunities for people to learn about what we are doing, what our mandate is. By way of reminder, we're responsible for land use and parks, but we are working with our partners responsible for law enforcement in terms of the OPP, housing and homelessness, in terms of Ellis and the County of Lennox and Addington, addictions and mental health. And we have the opportunity for people to understand what it is that we're doing, give them the ability to provide input on the parks bylaw about parks use more broadly, as well as the encampment protocol specifically. Then we are going to have an opportunity on October 1st for people to attend the Best in Bash Center. We'll have a facilitated session inclusive of our partners, where people will be able to say what it is that we're already doing, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be Ellis, whether it be the town of Greater Napanee. We are working in concert on this really challenging issue. In that, members of the community will have the opportunity to ask questions, provide feedback on what the recommendations are. And I would suggest that, as I mentioned at the meeting last week, what has been put forward as a recommendation for a parks management issue, creating predictability for both the unhoused and the housed to minimize negative interactions. And we would like to hear from the public, so we can provide council with the most informed recommendations. And so that process begins on the 16th. There'll be the in-person session on the 1st. Further to that, and picking up on your comments of last week, Mr. Mayor, about the tools in our toolbox. So members of administration, the senior leadership team have been looking, and what council can expect is for us to bring forward what is within our ability to manage some of these issues more broadly. And, I would suggest that the beginning is a parks bylaw, which is not specific to the issue of homelessness, but encompasses that. Prioritizing safety, as I understand, is council's priority, and what we heard clearly at the community, safety of the unhoused and safety of those that are housed. I know that I've been in discussions with the fire chief, who's been looking at fire legislation to make sure that we have done everything in our power to minimize the possibility of harm to both those that are living unhoused and those that are housed as a result of this issue. Council can expect us to bring forward a report on our strategy around using our full ability under that legislation to make sure we've done everything in our power to manage the issue from a risk mitigation perspective. The other opportunities that we have that council can hear from us is an encroachment bylaw. I know we've received a number of concerns and complaints with respect to materials being placed on public sidewalks that make it difficult for people to pass, may present a risk or a fire risk. And what I've heard from members of council, members of the public, is what is within our ability to manage that issue. And our ability to manage the issue is specifically related to either a bylaw or legislation that allows us to enforce. And so you can expect us to bring forward some things for council's consideration on how do we manage encroachment on public property. Further, we can take a look at items such as boarding houses. I know in light of recent events where there was a fire and an unfortunate death, the team has been discussing what is within our power and authority to manage those particular issues to make sure that we not only support the ability for transitional housing, but we also make sure that there's no unintended consequences for those particular facilities maybe not operating the way as intended. There'll be a number of other things that we might be able to bring forward, but those are the kinds of things that we're looking at. They'll come forward in the coming months. They won't all come at once because they're going to take some time and attention to review. We're going to prioritize fire safety, obviously, for obvious reasons. It's one of the larger risks, and you can expect, the fire chief to come forward with some information that in short order. But it is our intention, and we believe, the will of council, and that we take every opportunity to look at all the tools in our toolbox and do so fairly and equitably, but to make sure that we manage this issue to the best of our ability, knowing that we're not in a position to solve it. But we will remain committed to working with our partners to manage it as best as we can.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there any comments or questions for Mr. Grant with respect to what he said before we look for a resolution? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Excuse me, through you. Thank you, Matthew, for that. I'm just wondering, although we're going to be looking at getting these reports and stuff down the road, not too long from now, I'm just wondering, when we say that we can do something in our toolbox, would this be the right time to mention or to ask staff to increase the amount of garbage cans that are in the parks, and also supply and install some needle boxes? Not the council promotes using of needles, but we don't even know if the boxes will be used or the garbage cans will be used, but I can assure you that by not having it out there, they're not going to be used. So I'm just wondering if this would be the right time to ask if we could increase and supply those items.
Through your worship to Councillor Pennell, yes, Councillor, it would. And so I do know that the opportunity has been discussed, and we can certainly explore that. It is the will of council that we look at expanding the ability to provide garbage receptacles, but more specifically, needle drop boxes. If it is the will of council for us to pursue that, I would recommend a resolution to that effect, and then staff will take a look on how best we can do that. And I would recommend that we bring back a report to say this is specifically where we put them, this is how they're going to be handled. But I would say now would be the time, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. I guess I should have added this in with the new business, but just came in late. So I'd like to make a motion that council direct staff to bring back a report to supply and install additional garbage cans and needle drop boxes help me out with the rest, please.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Would what Councillor Pennell is asking for be incorporated in a possible resolution that we're going to suggest here? Or do you want something specific?
I think if it was included in the context of the motion that you're going to bring forward, Your Worship, we can take Councillor Pennell's suggestion as direction and bring that forward as one of the tools in our toolbox and do that in short order.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Thank you, Councillor Pennell. I'm going to suggest a direction forward with respect to giving staff a direction here, and you folks can let me know what you think. That council directs staff to bring a report back to the September 24th regular meeting, which provides a roadmap of how the town can move forward in response to the concerns raised at the September 3rd special meeting, and which includes policies or bylaws the town can implement to mitigate resident concerns, particularly around issues of public safety, while conforming to the legal framework regarding charter rights and the town's sphere of jurisdiction, a work plan, implementation timeline, and budget impact for each of the proposed policies or bylaws, and the proposed community engagement process. Is that the direction that council would like to give Mr. Grant to come back on the 24th? And do we need to add anything with respect to Councillor Pennell's concerns, Madam Clerk?
Through Your Worship, would match the intent of this resolution to just add in another clause that it also includes increasing the number of, a report about increasing the number of public garbage cans and needle drop boxes. And then again, that timeline and budget impact information would apply to that request as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. And you've got that added in. Is there a will to make a motion, to put a motion on the floor? Deputy Mayor Carver, going to make that by way of motion?
I'll make that by way of motion.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Norrie. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion on the floor, or the discussions that we've had? Mr. Grant.
Through you, Mr. Worship, to members of council, I would just add to that when we bring a report back, this will be staged work. So I just wanted to set expectations. It'll be phased work. I would suggest the work that's going to happen sooner than later, those budget proposals will be a bit more defined. Think work that is further out, I would suggest would be more general in nature in terms of our estimates. But I just wanted the expectations set at this point.
Great, thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there anything further with respect to our discussion or our motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And thank you, Mr. Grant, for taking this to task and all the work that's going to be involved in it. Next up is announcements. Do any members of council, would anyone like to make any announcements this evening? Councillor Shank.
Since the CAO, Matthew, has been here, I want to just apologize to all of the staff that when I get all these emails and the fantastic communication that we have now, when I don't respond back is because when I'm sitting in a tractor and I'm on the farm and to respond back and say thank you, if I respond back, you'll know I'll have a question or anything else, but I just want to say to all the staff that are sending these emails, thank you so much as working as a team, giving us the information, giving us the facts, and everything that you guys are doing now. And Matthew, I think it's just fantastic, but I just want to apologize because I know I see this beep, 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 and everybody's saying thank you. I'm going, does nobody work? But all I'm saying is thank you. All right. So I just want to appreciate it.
You opened up a door for a big discussion there, Mike, but we're just going to leave it for now. So is there anything else? CEO remarks. Mr. Grant, is there any remarks you'd like to make or any updates or anything you'd like to say?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the only comment I would make is to Councillor Shank, and you're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Matthew. If moving on to the forward calendar, we've got the Q3, Q4 forward calendar as well as the council resolution tracker. Is there anything in those documents anyone has any questions about or would like asked about or has any concerns about? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion to confirm the proceedings via a bylaw for the Council Corporation Town of Greater Napanee. Moved by Councillor Hicks, second by Councillor Pennell. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 10th day of September 2024. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. And look for a motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Martin, second by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no questions, comments, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks. Again, another productive evening, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.